Hope you've got that winning attitude, driver. A new playlist means new adventures, driver. time. Driver.
There's been time where I was working 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, working 2 or 3 different jobs sometimes, just to pay for another hour of flying and another flying lesson. And yeah, it's been worth it.
Welcome back to Motorfest, the podcast. My name is Becky Evans, and this is a podcast brought to you by Red Bull and Ubisoft's iconic game, the Crew Motorfest. Now, in this podcast, this is where I get to talk to motorsport athletes about their passions, all things speed, wings, and wheels. And you know what the really cool thing is? You can actually listen to this podcast whilst you're playing the game. So grab one of your dream vehicles, jump in, strap in, because you're about to hear from the athletes that actually get to drive these in the real world. Let's get the show started. Now, today we've got a very, very special guest. We're going to be chatting to Luke Chiapella. Luke is a multi-award-winning Red Bull Air Race winner, known for his precision, skill, and fearless flying. From winning the Challenger Cup to landing a plane on a helipad in Dubai, Luke is committed to pushing the boundaries of flying. Luke, we're delighted to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm just going to jump straight into it. I am terrified of flying, so when I knew I was going to be chatting to you, I was thinking this guy is going to have to tell me everything that gets him up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to do a loop in a plane.
Flying aerobatics gives you such a freedom. It's not every day that you can fly aircraft upside down, or you can fly it in reverse, like at 60 kilometers per hour. All the G-forces that we experience, it's something that you cannot experience on the ground. That's why I'm so happy to share it with other people. Give them the taste of the freedom that you get, and spread the joy of flying.
Now, I come from a drifting background, and I was around cars from a very, very young age, and it's actually my dad who sort of ignited that in me, because I remember seeing him playing with his race car in the garage. It was the same kind of for you, wasn't it? You went to an air show when you were a very small boy, and then that was it, you were hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. My spark ignited when I was 6 years old. My dad took me to the air show in Poland, and it's just been amazing. I was watching a aerobatic display, and the aircraft was doing a tail slide. It's a figure where you go vertically up, and it seems like you're shutting down the engine, and the aircraft starts to slide back on its tail. And I saw it as a 6-year-old kid, and I was like, Dad, I'm going to do it in the future. And many 6-year-old kids have different dreams every week. Sometimes you want to be a policeman, the week after you want to be a fireman. But for me, it has never changed. I've been flying now for 26 years, and I still love it.
That's absolutely crazy that you just picked your direction and just stuck with it. I mean, the first flight lesson, you were 14 years old, and then by 16 you got your license. So there was definitely method in your madness. This was all moving towards where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so motivated. Like from this air show, I started playing with aircraft models, free flying models, and then I just went to the airport and I became what's known the time I went solo at 16, I was over the moon. It's been a lot of hard work, but so rewarding as well.
Luke, we were just saying to you just then, flying was always going to be what you were going to do. And I'm going to give you a question, which I almost feel like I know what the answer is already. If you could be a car, a plane, a boat, or a motorbike, which would you be and why?
Yeah, of course I'd go for a plane, but this is what my life is all about. It's always been about flying. I have 13,500 hours a year. That's like 4 years of my life. 10% of my life has been spent in the air. So I just want to be a better pilot with every flight I take.
I'd love to know more about the bullseye stunt. I mean, we saw and heard it at the beginning of the episode. Personally, for me, I remember seeing that, and I watched the video, and I had a heart attack. I was like, oh my gosh. But obviously, I know that this guy made this happen because everyone's celebrating it, but I couldn't cope with it.
I almost had a heart attack on the first one as well. It was incredibly difficult project that we did. Landing a plane in such a short distance. It's not something very unusual for this kind of aircraft, but landing the plane on a small helipad that is 600 feet in the air, 200 meters above sea level, that hasn't been done before, and it comes with a lot of difficulties. One of those difficulties is the shape of the building created very special wind vortices, like a little tornadoes coming up the building, hitting the helipad, and these tornadoes want to suck in my aircraft and throw it towards the building. And that's what happened on the first two attempts when the winds were quite strong. So usually if you try to land short, you want a lot of wind because the wind will assist you, but not on the helipad. On the helipad, the less wind we had was easier to fly with the plane. So all in all, it took me like 650 practice landings before I went for the actual landing on the helipad, and the first two attempts on the helipad.
Do you need anything? Don't be a stranger.
Back on a windy day, they were not very successful. Then we had to reset and try again the day after, so that was quite challenging.
I feel like the stakes are quite high, especially when you're doing something like that as well. Not only are you on like the Red Bull World stage creating a moment in history, there's the practical element of it as well, of trying to land this thing on a really tall building.
Yeah, so for me, being the best pilot I can be, it's the most rewarding. I'm not doing any of this for fame or money or whatever. I'm just doing it to show that I'm good, and I always want to be the best I can be. And I think we proved with this project that was one of the toughest things I ever did with the plane, and now we can see how successful the project was. We have like way over a billion views on the videos on all the platforms.
That's brilliant. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, for you guys that are listening at home, air sport, the sky is literally the limit with this. Aerobatics is a bit like acrobatics, except you're flying an aircraft. There's a lot of other things to consider, though, when you are flying. There's obviously safety, speed, weather. Luke, can you give us a rundown of like 3 main things that you have to be watching out for when you attempt to do some aerobatics in the sky?
Yeah, I think first will be the weather. All our aircraft don't have very sophisticated instruments, so we have to fly what's known as VFR condition, visual flying rules. We always have to see the ground, we have to stay outside of the clouds, and the winds play a big factor. Then of course is the technical standard of the aircraft. We always try to make sure that the aircraft is airworthy. Having an engine failure approaching a helipad so close to the building or flying upside down 3 meters above the runway, it's an extreme sport. So second, for sure, the technical side, and I think the third, but as equal as the other two, would be of course pilot fitness, and we want to make sure I'm rested, I'm in a good physical condition. The G-forces is something that we fight with a lot. We fly from -8 Gs to +10, what it means I can get up to 10 times heavier, like weighing 80 kilos. I have 800 kilos of force hitting my body. The blood is 10 times heavier, and it drains away from the brain, goes towards my legs. And you can faint, and you can lose your consciousness. And that can be, of course, very dangerous when you're close to the ground, flying at 400 kilometers per power.
Yeah, that does sound pretty crazy. I've seen some of the videos, you know, where people, when they put passengers in the plane. That's why I'm frightened, Luke, when you said I can go in the plane. I'd be like, I'd pass out. I'd be rubbish. I'd be looking back and then I'd just be asleep in the back seat. Terrible. Luke, help us understand a little bit more about the specifics of the job. I mean, because what people need to know is obviously you compete in Red Bull Air Race as well, and that is a competition. So what are the skills and the awareness that you need to be able to do this?
Yeah, Red Bull Air Race was one of the best flying I ever had a chance to do. And, you fly aircraft at 400 kilometers per hour between gates which are only 15 meters apart. And the entire track has like 6 kilometers length, and we fly it in 100 minutes sometimes. Incredible speeds. The aircraft can roll 420 degrees per second at 0.8 seconds to make a full roll. You need to be incredibly precise and really good pilot in order to plan and to stay behind the plane. Pretty good hand-eye coordination, I think, is a key factor, and as well as physical fitness, because we are so close to the ground, pulling high G forces. If you lose your concentration for a couple of seconds, this can be really bad for you.
Can you tell us, like, how you came from, it's quite a small place in Poland that you grew up in, to how you managed to take those steps to becoming the amazing pilot that you are today?
I think it's all about the motivation. If you have a big goal set somewhere on the horizon, then you'll find a way to find the next step and next step. And it's all about those small steps that when you achieve them, they will keep you going. And I didn't have a very rich parents to support me. To start gliding, I was doing building jobs, renovating the hangar, helping out around the aircraft when I was 19. I had to make some decisions about going to uni or maybe to the Air Force. The Air Force didn't recruit. I didn't have money for the uni. But I was so motivated, I applied for an au pair program, and I became a babysitter at 19. I moved to the UK. When the kids were at school, I would just run to the airport and help with the aircraft maintenance there. That's how I got my private pilot license for powered aircraft, and I just kept going at it, and it was really, really good, giving me the motivation to go step by step.
What I was thinking to myself when I was listening to your story there, like, not everybody feels as comfortable as you would be flying a plane. I mean, much less racing or backflipping in one. What are your top 5 tips for anyone who wants to successfully fly a plane?
You need to love it. When I started flying, you can just imagine my disappointment. It's been my dream for many, many years, and I started flying. What I realized is that I'm getting a motion sickness, and I was sick every single flight. But human body is so amazing, and it adapts. That after a couple of months, I didn't have a problem with that. And there's been so many obstacles in my life that try to stop me from flying. But if you love it, you'll do anything to be good at it. And I'm thinking I'm a perfect example of someone going from zero to hero, just because of my incredible motivation and the drive to do things. Not a lot of financial support or anything from anyone else.
It's hard to explain to somebody who, when you want to do something so bad. I mean, I can only talk about drifting from my side, and it's like, you're like, I don't have the money to do this, but I know I'm going to make it happen, and I've got no choice really. I've got to put myself on the track, or in your case, put yourself in the air, and that's kind of it. And you sort of just make it happen. You just have to push and push and push. And everything, when you wake up every single day, if you have that one thought in mind, you're able to make it happen, I think.
Absolutely, and it will drive you to find ways to do it, like buy another set of tires or buy another hour of flying. There's been time where I was working 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, working 2 or 3 different jobs sometimes, just to pay for another hour of flying and another flying lesson, and it's been worth it.
Well, let's talk about the Carbon Cub UL. I mean, we've just obviously heard the noise of it. This is the plane that you used for the Bullseye stunt, as well as the Edge 540, which is a single-seater and 2-seater. These are the planes that you use for competition and day-to-day life. I'm feeling nosy. If I was to take a look inside these vehicles, what would be some exciting features that I would find?
I think for someone who's into car racing, drifting, or rallies, I think the power-to-weight ratio is quite impressive. The aircraft that we landed on the helipad, it weighs 900 pounds, or for those of you in Europe, 400 kilos, and it has 230 horsepower. It's got the nitrous in it, like some of the racing cars, and with a flick of a switch, I can get my engine to get a 50 horsepower extra to go around. The aerobatic aircraft, I have a 10-liter engine which develops 350 horsepower in the aircraft that weighs just over 600 kilos. You know, so the power-to-weight ratio, it's close to Bugatti Veyron, I would say, and that's what allows me to fly the aircraft vertically up and achieve 400 kilometers per hour in the race aircraft. Thanks to a massive big wing, I can fly as slowly as 50 kilometers per hour in the carbon caps. Yeah, out of those two, it's really hard to say which one is my favorite, but yeah, those two are extremely different and opposite to each other. One was made to go fast, the other one was like a rocket roller, slow going, but I love them both. It's like choosing your favorite child.
How are you sort of refining and modifying these planes to keep up with the demands of the sport? I mean, I know we're always putting, different superchargers or turbochargers on our cars to make it faster. Like, our sport is constantly evolving, so there's always modifications that you do in order to keep them up to spec. Is it the same for planes?
We'd love to modify them. It's not so easy to modify the aircraft because there's a lot more regulations that you have to comply with. The carbon cap that I used for Dubai, this one have been modified from the original. Like we removed the fuel tanks, which are usually situated in the wings, but we put them in the back of the plane to have the center of gravity as low and as far back. That would give me better braking. We designed a carbon fiber belly cover that would protect the aircraft in case I strike the edge of the helipad with my tail. It's like a big bumper. And of course we had nitrous in it. I thought like Fast and Furious.
That's proper, having nitrous in a plane. I'd never even heard that. Do you have to keep the gas bottle up there as well? Like, that's quite heavy.
Yeah, but the bottle was also in the bag. That was further enhancement to the center of gravity. So.
Well, speaking of nitrous and cars and everything involved in that, you once raced your plane against Ben Collins in an F1 car. Can you tell us how this came about and who won the race? Was it the plane or the car?
Yeah, so we raced the BMW Sauber against my Edge 540 at one of the air shows in Poland. Steve was the driver, and I have to say I'm very proud that I really kicked his ass.
Perfect, love it.
After 2 laps, I had to go and idle to try to make it look like we finished close, but yeah, I won it with a big margin.
Are there any other memorable stunts that we should know about, and how do these help you become a better competitor? I mean, we've all seen the bullseye stunt, because that was just unbelievable, but is there any other ones that sort of stick out in your mind as that was a good day at work?
Yeah, for sure. I think my first big project with Red Bull was flying under the bridges in Warsaw. Me and the Czech pilot Martin Sanka in front of 3 bridges in Poland trying to paint the Polish flag on the Polish National Flag Day. And then I landed on the historic wooden pier in Sopot in one of the Polish famous cities. And that was the project that gave me idea for the bullseye landing later. I also had some fun flying with some of our skydivers, like Game Over with Maya Kuczynska, where I was chasing a skydiver with my plane flying around her.
Casual.
Yeah, another day at work,
It's another day in the office.
And I have to say it's the best office you can get, even when I fly the big commercial plane.
We're going to talk about dream vehicles right now. Everybody's got a dream vehicle. Today is your lucky day, Luke. You've been given a ticket to test flight any type of aircraft that your heart desires. Which model would you choose, and where would you take it?
I would go for a classic. Like for a lot of car lovers, they would go for a 1960s Mustang or a Buick the Charger. I would go for a Mustang as well, but it's a P-51 Mustang. It's an American-built fighter from the Second World War, and the aircraft is absolutely incredible. It's fast, it looks very good. For those of you who watched the latest Top Gun movie with Tom Cruise, that's the plane, the silver plane that he was cleaning his hangar, and I know he's got one, and I think that's a plane that I will fly one day.
I feel like an old Mustang like that would sound absolutely unbelievable. Like when I think of like vintage cars, what I love about it is the smell, is the sound, you know, these sort of big displacement engines with straight through exhaust. Are we talking the same language here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a V12 engine.
Wow.
I don't know the capacity out of from my head, but that must be like 20-something liters capacity there. You're operating at 1,000 horsepower plus, and straight out exhaust. When it starts up, you can see the flames coming out of the exhaust manifold, and the sound is absolutely incredible.
Aside from planes, what are some of the other memorable vehicles that you've tried or seen or even thought, you know what, I really want one of those?
So many.
I know, that's such a hard question. It's just like, I don't know, Becky, like it's like 50 that's seen over the years.
I love I'm a very competitive person, so whatever you put me in, I'll do my best to win it. Like go-karts, don't get me even started in go-karts, because I'll be a rider running into everyone just to win the race. And yeah, I think I'd love to be a race car driver, like compete with in racing cars, and Formula One would be fun to drive. I would love to drive one of those, and yeah, I'd go for Formula One.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I love the fact that we're actually really similar in a sense that car people and aeroplane people still like the old stuff. We're like the new, all carbon, super slick, like that's great. But where our heart really lies is in the old school, in the big V12, V16s, V10. Like that's me. V8s, V10s, all of the old school stuff. So I'm delighted that there is that crossover between different sports, but the same feeling, right?
Absolutely. You know, the sound of the old V8s, V12s makes you so sentimental. I don't know, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up when I hear one of those.
Do you know, sometimes they would do like an air show where I think it was the old school bombers that would come, like the Spitfires, would come down over the drag racing track when I was a kid. So I grew up around drag racing, and the planes would come over the track. I actually got emotional. I'm not quite sure why. When you see big planes like that when they're flying, and like the noise and the feeling in your chest, it makes you emotional. I'm not entirely sure why, and that's from somebody who's like a casual consumer of airplanes.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think that's why they still fly. It's thanks to people like us who love them and who love the sound of them, and will go and pay for the ticket to the air show to see them. That's what keeps them flying. And, you know, they are 1940s, 1950s aircraft, and there's still quite a few of them maintained by very passionate people for everyone else to enjoy, and we've got to be really thankful for that, and hope they will fly another 7 years.
Right, I'm going to jump into some rapid fire questions with you, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So flying by day versus flying by night.
Day.
Favorite weather conditions?
Cumulus clouds. Just
Takeoff or landing?
take it.
Do you sometimes talk to your friends?
Oh yeah, always. After each flight, of course with small planes. I don't look to the Airbus too much, but after each flight in the air or the carbon cap, when I put it back in the hangar, I will go and stroke it and thank it for a nice flight. And yeah, it's a very personal relationship that I have with all 3 planes I have.
I love that. In terms of runways, which do you prefer and why? Concrete, asphalt, grass, or sand?
Last week was the first time I landed on sand
Let's just rewind that one.
in Huntington Beach, and that was a lot of fun to land on the beach. But I would say concrete is pretty cool because for the racer on the small wheels, it's the smoothest and yeah, it doesn't hurt the plane a lot.
Favorite music tracks or artists that you like to listen to while you're training, competing, and chilling?
I think going for the hardcore stuff like training. Yeah, some old heavy metal, but for chilling, sometimes I do like to listen to classical music.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Luke. You know what? It's been a real insight. I've never spoken to a pilot before, and I feel like you've put my fear of flying a little bit to rest there. It's amazing that you've got such a passion for old vehicles. You know, I think whatever sport you're in, you always look to what was, which is what creates what is, and I love that we can connect on that. So thank you so much for joining me.
A pleasure, and you need to take me up on the offer of flying together, so I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Okay, do you know what? We'll do that. I'll come and fly with you, and I'll take you out of my S50. She's a great girl. I'll put four wheels on the ground for me, and will be 4 wheels in the air for you.
That's a deal.
That's it for today's episode of Motorfest podcast. I'm Becky Evans. You can find me on all podcast platforms. You can also just check out YouTube. Just type in my name and you'll find me. So make sure that you get yourself on the game, the Crew Motorfest from Ubisoft, and we'll see you guys on the next episode super soon.
There's been time where I was working 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, There's been time where I was working 12 to 14-hour days, 7 days a week, working 2 or 3 different jobs sometimes, just to pay for another hour of flying and another flying lesson. And it's been worth it.
Welcome back to Motorfest, the podcast. My name is Becky Evans, and this is a podcast brought to you by Red Bull and Ubisoft's iconic game, the Crew Motorfest. Now, in this podcast, this is where I get to talk to motorsport athletes about their passions, all things speed, wings, and wheels. And you know what the really cool thing is? You can actually listen to this podcast whilst you're playing the game. So grab one of your dream vehicles, jump in, strap in, because you're about to hear from the athletes that actually get to drive these in the real world. Let's get the show started. Now, today we've got a very, very special guest. We're going to be chatting to Luke Chapella. Luke is a multi-award-winning Red Bull Air Race winner, known for his precision, skill, and fearless flying. From winning the Challenger Cup to landing a plane on a helipad in Dubai, Luke is committed to pushing the boundaries of flying. Luke, we're delighted to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm just going to jump straight into it. I am terrified of flying. So when I knew I was going to be chatting to you, I was thinking this guy is going to have to tell me everything that gets him up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to do a loop in a plane.
Flying aerobatics gives you such a freedom, you know. It's not every day that you can fly aircraft upside down, or you can fly it in reverse, like at 60 kilometers per hour. All the G-forces that we experience, it's something that you cannot experience on the ground. That's why I'm so happy to share it with other people, give them the taste of the freedom that we get, and spread the joy of flying.
Now, I come from a drifting background, and I was around cars from a very, very young age, and it was actually my dad who sort of ignited that in me, because I remember seeing him playing with his race car in the garage. It was the same kind of for you, wasn't it? You went to an air show when you were a very small boy, and then that was it. You were hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. My spark ignited when I was 6 years old. My dad took me to the air show in Poland, and it's just been amazing. You know, I was watching a robotic display, and the aircraft was doing a tail slide. It's a figure where you go vertically up, and it seems like you're shutting down the engine, and the aircraft starts to slide back on its tail. And I saw it as a 6-year-old kid, and I was like, Dad, I'm going to do it in the future. And, you know, many 6-year-old kids have different dreams every week. Sometimes you want to be a policeman, the week after you want to be a fireman. But for me, it has never changed. I've been flying now for 26 years, and I still love it.
That's absolutely crazy that you just picked your direction and just stuck with it. I mean, the first flight lesson, you were 14 years old, and then by 16 you got your license. So there was definitely method in your madness. This was all moving towards where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was so motivated. Like from this air show, I started playing with aircraft models, free-flying models, and then I just went to the airport and I became what's known as a hangar rat. You know, cleaning the airplanes for everyone. And in exchange of that, they would take me for a flight and usually let me fly the aircraft, give me the first lessons. By the time I went solo at 16, I was over the moon. It's been a lot of hard work, but so rewarding as well.
Luke, we were just saying to you just then, flying was always going to be what you were going to do. And I'm going to give you a question which I almost feel like I know what the answer is already. If you could be a car, a plane, a boat or a motorbike, which would you be and why?
Yeah, of course I'd go for a plane, but you know, this is what my life is all about. It's always...
I use like a jet, you know, like you can see the fire from the exhaust, like full time. You risk your life, but it is what it is, you know, like, and hopefully you get a good machines. I want to have like proper missile and how do you say, the minigun.
Yeah, and the one with the like Tommy gun with the...
Yeah, that one, yeah. And oil like a oil league weapon,
yeah,
something like that.
Perfect, Mad Max style, love it. What's happening, guys? My name is Becky Evans and welcome to Motorfest, the podcast, brought to you by Red Bull and Ubisoft's iconic game, the Crew Motorfest. This is the podcast where I get to chat with some of the world's leading motorsport athletes and delve into their passions for all things speed, wings and wheels. And the really cool thing is you can actually listen into this podcast whilst you're playing the game. Today's guest was born with some serious athlete instincts. I'd be very surprised if you hadn't seen or heard of him. His name is Yuki Tsunoda, and what he's most famous for is his electrifying talent on the F1 grid. He's been racing for about 20 years. Well, that's also included his career as a kid go-karter, growing up in Sagamihara, about an hour away from Tokyo. He lives in Italy currently, but he's joining me today here in Milton Keynes. Yuki, thanks so much for being here and welcome to the show. How are you?
Amazing. Yeah, just in UK. Just flew back from Brazil. Yeah, just had a bit of 2 weeks gap, so excited for a bit of rest now.
So let's jump straight into it, Yuki. You've been described as a person who lights up a room when you walk into it. You're someone who knows exactly what you want. You're unashamed and unafraid to express it. And in terms of your identity as a driver, you're known for quite a modern driving style. Could you break down what you feel your driving style is for us watching you on the screen?
My driving style, mainly, I have good confidence with the braking. So, you know, I'm good at attacking the braking. So you can use that also in, you know, the one lap qualifying lap, hot lap. And also to overtake someone. I think this is coming from the karting skills when I was very, very young, like, you know, 13, 20, 12 years old or whatever. My dad used to teach me a lot about braking, and that kind of base or DNA still inside my driving skill, and definitely I like to adapt braking. Recently, last Grand Prix was a bit too much sometimes, and yeah, unfortunately, a couple of times went to the wall. But still have good confidence, and feels great when you feel the G-force, with the maximum longitudinal G-force when you have nailed the great braking.
How do you feel that you have evolved as a driver over these years? Obviously, starting in go-karting, and then to present day.
Yeah, a lot of things. When I was karting, there were a lot of emotional things that probably, as a human, I was growing significantly, fast, and especially those times. And at some point, I even didn't like much motorsports. I got distracted by other sports. I'm the person, like, I want to try a lot of sports. I'm very active. So I tried like downhill mountain biking, swimming, a lot of kind of stuff, skateboarding, for example, and
The podcast continues.
Tried like downhill mountain biking, swimming, a lot of kind of stuff, skateboarding, for example. And but yeah, I knew somewhere in my mind that motorsport is the things that probably I'm very good at. And I started 4 years old, and there's always strong passion inside my heart. So yeah, it's kind of went through it, those moments, and evolve throughout the years. And especially compared to first day Formula One was 2021, and compared now, it's a lot different. Even that 4 years, this kind of environment makes my mindset very strong as a human. Not just inside of racing, also outside of racing. Yeah, I feel I just in general place I feel grown. Yeah.
That explains so much. When I watched you on that Red Bull series where it was you trying different sports, you absolutely shone, because it was just like getting to do other things, and you were so happy and excited. Yeah,
serious race series, I think that goes. I know you try to race with the vehicle that you don't normally race with, and adaptation to that is quite key. And probably because I was doing a lot of sports, used to it with adapting to some sports immediately. So yeah, probably that's why I'm good at it. And also the moments I feel a lot of adrenaline, I have to go flat out. I go flat out from straight away from the once I hold the steering and see how it goes. And those kind of moments I really get excited.
Yuki, I feel like you'd make a great drift driver. From everything you've just said there, I think you'd be very good at it. I can't wait for the day to see you in a drift car.
Hey, I love drifting. Yes, when I was in karting, in rain condition, for example, you can drift around, right?
back to the interview. I can't wait for the day to see you in a drift car.
Hey, I love drifting. You know, like yes, when I was in karting, in rain condition, for example, like you can drift around, right? Like especially, corner entry, it's actually sometimes good to drift a little bit to rotate the car and to drive fast in the corner. But the current Formula One, like it's hard to drift. You can drift, but not the drift that probably every people thinking about. It's not like Tokyo Drift. You can't just drift all the way through a corner. Sometimes actually drifting is good training for us because of it's still there's a lot of sliding while in the hot lap, but because of we got used to it too much with the grip, that trying to not slide too much, sometimes you can't really react as much as you used to be. So actually drifting training is some drivers does it, and actually some point even like when I went back to Japan, I do some time on the snow doing something drifting and just have fun.
This is a question that I'm asking all of my guests in all seriousness. If you could be a car, a plane, a boat, or a motorbike, which would you be and why?
Oh, good question. I'm thinking either plane or motorbike. I think a plane is quite good. You can fly around, but probably it'll be boring. You see just same view all the time. So above the clouds, so I'll choose motorbike.
Yeah, we're like trying to match people's personalities with which vehicle they take. I love the fact that you chose the plane. You're like, it's kind of boring.
Yeah,
just floating about up there. We'll take the motorbike.
I'm actually quite easy to get boring with any sports. That's why I got distracted with a lot of sports. That's probably one of the reasons that I got distracted. But it's just easy to get bored.
That's my favourite tagline from this podcast. Yuki Tsunoda, great driver, easily distracted.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you've been driving for a very long time. Your father was a mechanic and a former car racer himself. How has his influence been pivotal on your career?
Yeah, definitely my dad. Influenced my career a lot of parts, and like I said previously, that for example driving, part of my driving skills that I have a lot of confidence in the braking. Definitely my dad gave a lot of tips about braking, and he's the one who always saying like, when you start, first thing you enter to the corner, the first thing you do is braking, right? Maybe some corners doesn't do it, but that brake, how you brake will affect your car movements afterwards. So braking is actually really important part of the corner. And he loved to do something mechanics, like touching some cars, karting and set up the cars, and also probably he used to do a bit of motorsports as well. So he enjoyed doing a lot of doing motorsports with me. And I think it was
Visualize your next objective.
always part of my career until especially like 14 years old. He was very strict, it started 4 years old, like we started casually, and once I actually started to win, probably he saw there's a bit of talent to myself, and maybe he thought probably we thought that maybe we can be professional drivers at some point, but to step up like that way, we need to be more serious with motorsports, and he's the one started being a bit more serious and strict. And that's why one of the reasons that I didn't sometimes be like motorsports, because he was always the person like angry, mad at me, like when I have bad race, he's the one who's very mad at me and really enjoy it. But without those things, and without his teach or taught, like listen, I wouldn't be here. So I very appreciate him.
I think it makes a better driver, genuinely. I did go-karting when I was 7 years old, and my dad was always like, it's okay, sweetie. I remember hitting I remember the cone in the middle of the track, to separate the pack for the transponders. I just drove straight through it, and I came off the track, and my dad was like, it's okay, sweetheart. we'll go again next summer. Clap forwards, I'm not a champion driver, so I can totally appreciate the strictness from dads. It definitely gives you a good level of discipline.
Sometimes actually, I was always watching the drivers or the family that's like the parents teaching to their kids very kindly, and I would always compare to my situation with my dad, like my dad I would.
No shame in trying again.
love to have like that kind of bit of kindness, when you teach me something, because like, like sometimes it's a bit too much strict, but probably because of he know my personality, like I don't really recognize until I experience something really bad. Then probably he knew about my personality, especially those kind of, I wouldn't say negative side, but one of the bit of weakness of myself to progress the karting, and well, that's why he was being very aggressive to me.
You were 7 years old when you went to your first F1 race. That must have made a huge impact. Like, what can you remember from that very first F1 race?
First time I saw Formula One, like you said, 7 years old, when I went to Fuji Speedway, Japan, Japanese Grand Prix. I think initial impression from Formula One was just too loud. First of all, the engine sounds, and I remember like I was always covering the ears. To be honest, obviously, if I hear it now, it's just amazing sound, like V10, like it's so cool.
Let's give the new playlist a spin.
But at that point, I was like get annoyed with that sound every time cars come, cars in front of me. You just have to always cover the ear, and still you can hear through the hands. So yeah, like I didn't really have a good impression of Formula One, but at the same time, I got impressed about the environment, how the Formula One race works, and all the drivers, how high quality drivers are. And definitely I dream about, one day I want to be a Formula One driver, but hopefully less out.
I mean, taking that thought and cut to 2020 and your first experience driving an F1 car. It was a test session at Imola circuit. You were driving the Toro Rosso STR13. Can you describe that car and those crazy first sensations when you drove it?
I still remember the first time I drove Formula One. It was like, first of all, I got impressed about initial longitudinal G-force after I accelerate. Just like the acceleration power I felt was you can't compare with anything, the tempo I drove until then, and just it has so much power. And even actually, it was first time I drove was rain condition, which is kind of less grip, obviously, because rain condition is a bit more slippery, so you can't experience fully. It's not like dry conditions, so you can't really feel the full power of Formula One, but still with the rain condition, feel massive power. And also one thing I got really impressed most was the braking. So even rain condition, normally you press brake half of pressure compared to the dry condition. So there's a bit of step compared to Formula 3 to Formula 2. There's a change to carbon brake in Formula 2, and I still remember Formula 2 first time brake. I still got surprised, but like 2, 3, 10 times more. Like once the brake, like my neck went immediately forward, and like almost I touched the steering. Luckily not, but like okay, no, oh damn, this braking is very have a serious power. Most of the time after that, you try to tense your big neck and the brake, and normally you'll be okay. It was like that situation in Formula 2, but every time even that I tensed my neck, my neck went forward. The power of the braking, I got super surprised about that.
Let's talk about F1. It is the pinnacle of motorsport in the highest class of single-seater racing. It's all about speed, positioning, pushing the machine to the limit. F1 cars generally generate a speed of over 200 miles per hour on the straights. But there's more to F1 than just speed. It's about timing, aerodynamics, the strategic thinking. It's about precision. Can you walk us through an F1 qualifying session for us?
It's quite simple. There's not really much strategy to think about. Just drive fast in one lap. Drive fastest, try to be fastest in one lap. You can also feel the best quality, best performance from the Formula One, because once you be in a race, you carry 100 liters of fuel. And also the tire won't be new tire, so it's already worn. So you have to kind of manage the tire to last long enough to make the strategy works. But in qualifying one lap, you don't have to think about it. And with a fresh tire, it just feels full power of it. And it's all about how much you can nail every corners. Obviously it's hard to be 100% perfect every corners, but every drivers are aiming to be 100% close to 100% performance lap. and that's kind of beautiness and the thrilling is the one that I really like most from the qualifying.
So describe to me your ultimate dream machine. That could be a car, a bike, a plane. And I want you to talk me through, like, what's your custom color setup? What kind of sound is it making? Tell me what that looks like and sounds like.
Right. Color, I don't care. In terms of sounds, I miss B10, B12 sounds. So that one. But engine, I would say I use like a jet. You know, like you can see the fire from the exhaust, like full time. And I used to love the movie called Death Race. You know, there's a lot of weapon on the car and kill each other. I would love that. You know, like obviously you risk your life, but it is what it is. You know, like and hopefully you get a good machine. So I want to have like proper missile and how do you say the minigun.
The one with the Tommy gun with the...
Yeah, that one, yeah. And oil like a oil leak weapon, something like that.
Perfect.
Defense.
Mad Max style, love it. If you were to take me for a personal tour inside your garage, what would I find? Is there a car that you own that you just absolutely love?
I'll say Honda NSX. It's not like old classic NSX, which I still love that one. But currently I have the new modern NSX, and the comfortableness you feel there in that car is amazing. Even though supercar, you know, most of supercar actually is very fast, but not really made for like a long ride trip car. And actually NSX, even I drove more than, we say like kilometers, so we say 500 kilometers or whatever, 400 miles. Yep. You don't feel any back pain, and just amazing. We're still having good power. It's more than 600 horsepower.
Right, we're going to have a bit of a fun quiz. It's rapid fire. You've got to tell me which answer comes to your mind first. I'm going to give you some options, and then I just want your immediate thought process, okay? Which one that you're going to pick?
Yep.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Extreme cold or extreme heat?
Extreme heat.
Driving by day or driving by night?
Is that like Formula One or just normal
just
vehicle?
Normal.
All right, night.
The last time you received a speeding ticket?
Oh, I received recently documents from Rome. I don't know what I did, but it was actually yesterday I got, so yesterday.
Perfect, yesterday. Do you sometimes talk to your cars?
No.
You've never talked to your F1 car?
Right. Talk?
Say, be good to me today.
Never. It's more like be good to me rather than I'll
like,
be.
Come on, girl.
True, yeah.
This.
Never. Like
wow.
There's a natural sense that probably connect each other, but I don't talk.
What are your current favorite music tracks to listen to whilst driving? So pre-race, getting into the zone, and post-race to relax and de-stress.
I don't recently listen much to the music before the session, but like to de-stress sometime after the session or my way back to the hotel, I listen quite often to country music recently. I really like multiple country music, like from Australia or even obviously US and Texas. I was just in US, and it's perfect to listen to the country song. So yeah, country song.
Is it better to be the best strategist or have the best driving skills?
Best driving skills.
If you had to choose any of the motorsport disciplines, be it on land, on water, or in the air, which would you choose and why?
That's it. On the air, that'll be six, like Top Gun. You know, I'm right? I'm thinking about, Top Gun, why not? On the air, right?
With the sunglasses?
Yeah.
Like,
hell yeah.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about you today, Yuki. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Yuki, thank you so much for joining me today. Before you go, I'd like to finish up with this quote from Christian Horner himself. Our biggest asset is not the buildings or the machines, it's the people and the brain power and the way they work together. The people feed off each other. Would you agree, or what does this mean for you?
100%. Formula One environment, like if people thinks all about, driving and car. And probably you see most of it from the driver that who's performing in the car, but actually without the people who works obviously creates every part of the car, and obviously not just about the mechanics, people who developing the car, also who organizing the sponsors to obviously bring the money to develop the parts or something like that. I think without anyone currently, I think wouldn't able to perform as much as right now in every team. I can say that, and I think it's very team sports. You can see like pit stop, for example. While in the race, most of the current fastest pit stops are probably 1.9, 1.8. It's a range until 0.2, 0.5, 2.6 is still a good pit stop. But if you miss that, probably 3 seconds or 4 seconds, you lose a lot of lap time in the race. And I think to achieve good race as a whole, as a team, we need everyone to work properly. So I think it's definitely what the question says, proper valid.
Amazing. You've been great. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
That's it for today's episode of Motorfest the podcast. My name is Becky Evans. You can find me and all of the other episodes on all of your audio platforms, Spotify, YouTube. You can also just type in my name, that's Becky with a Y, and binge the rest of the series. And you can also listen to parts of it whilst you're playing the game. That's the Crew Motorfest from Ubisoft. Take care, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
I use like a jet, like you can see the fire from the exhaust, like full time. We risk our life, but it is what it is, and hopefully you get a good machines. I want to have like proper missile and how do you say, the minigun.
Yeah, the one with the Tommy gun with the.
Yeah, that one, yeah. And oil like a oil leak weapon, something like that.
Perfect.
Defense.
Mad Max style, love it. What's happening, guys? My name is Becky Evans and welcome to Motorfest, the podcast, brought to you by Red Bull and Ubisoft's iconic game, the Crew Motorfest. This is the podcast where I get to chat with some of the world's leading motorsport athletes and delve into their passions for all things speed, wings and wheels. And the really cool thing is, you can actually listen into this podcast whilst you're playing the game. Today's guest was born with some serious athlete instincts. I'd be very surprised if you hadn't seen or heard of him. His name is Yuki Tsunoda, and what he's most famous for is his electrifying talent on the F1 grid. He's been racing for about 20 years. Well, that's if you also include his career as a kid go-karter, growing up in Sagamihara, about an hour away from Tokyo. He lives in Italy currently, but he's joining me today here in Milton Keynes. Yuki, thanks so much for being here and welcome to the show. How are you?
Amazing. Just in the UK. Just flew back from Brazil. Just had a bit of 2 weeks gap, so excited for a bit of rest now.
So let's jump straight into it, Yuki. You've been described as a person who lights up a room when you walk into it. You're someone who knows exactly what you want, and you're unashamed and unafraid to express it. And in terms of your identity as a driver, you're known for quite a modern driving style. Could you break down what you feel your driving style is for us watching you on the screen?
My driving style, mainly, I have good confidence with the braking, so I'm good at attacking the braking, so you can use that also in the 1 lap qualifying lap, hot lap, and also to overtake someone. I think this is coming from the karting skills when I was very, very young, like 13, 20, and 12 years old or whatever. My dad used to teach me a lot about braking, and that kind of base or DNA still inside my driving skill. And definitely I like to attack braking. Recently, last Grand Prix was a bit too much sometimes, and unfortunately a couple of times went to the wall, but still have good confidence, and feels great when you feel the G-force, the maximum longitudinal G-force when you have nailed the great braking.
How do you feel that you have evolved as a driver over these years, obviously starting in go-karting and then to present day?
Yeah, a lot of things. When I was karting, a lot of emotional things that probably, as a human, I was growing significantly, fast, and especially those times. And at some point, I even didn't like much motorsports. I got distracted by other sports. I'm the person that are very active. So I tried downhill mountain biking, swimming, a lot of kind of stuff, skateboarding, for example. And but yeah, I knew somewhere in my mind that motorsport is the things that probably I'm very good at. And I started 4 years old, and there's always strong passion inside my heart. So yeah, it's kind of went through those moments and evolved throughout the years. And yeah, especially compared to first day Formula One was 2021, and compared now, it's a lot different. Even 4 years, this kind of environment makes my mindset as very strong as a human. Not just inside of.
on, our guest still has plenty of things to say.
Given, not just inside of racing, also outside of racing. Yeah, I feel like just in general, place I feel grown. Yeah.
That explains so much. When I watched you on that Red Bull series where it was you trying different sports, you absolutely shone because it was just like getting to do other things and you were so happy and excited. Yeah,
serious race series, I think that goes, I know you try to race with the vehicle that you don't normally race with, and adaptation to that is quite key, and probably because of us doing a lot of sports, you get used to it with adapting to some sports immediately. So yeah, probably that's why I'm good at it. And also the moments I feel a lot of adrenaline, I have to go flat out. I go flat out from straight away from the, once I hold the steering and see how it goes. And those kind of moments are really get excited.
Yuki, I feel like you'd make a great drift driver. From everything you've just said there, I think you'd be very good at it. I can't wait for the day to see you in a drift car.
Hey, I love drifting. Yes, when I was in karting, in rain condition, for example, you can drift around, right? Especially, corner entry, it's actually sometimes good to drift a little bit to rotate the car and, to drive fast in the corner. But current Formula One, it's hard to drift, you can drift, but
let's keep talking.
To rotate the car and, to drive fast in the corner. But the car...
The last time you received a speeding ticket?
1 month ago.
Oh, honest. Love that.
That is a story too.
That's a story I cannot tell. That is a good story. Maybe the next one.
Welcome back to Motorfest, the podcast. This is the show where I get to talk to some of the most daring motorsport athletes for their passions for all things speed, wings and wheels. And if you haven't already tried it, you can actually listen in whilst you're playing the game, the Crew Motorfest from Ubisoft. My name is Becky Evans, and in today's episode, we're talking to some serious all-terrain motorcycle adventurers, Argentinian World Rally Champion Luciano Benavides and his champion teammate, Australian Daniel Chucky Sanders. These are absolute warriors on two wheels, most notably the KTM 450 Rally Factory. Not your normal motocross bike, and according to Daniel Sanders, it pops and barks like an angry dog. Guys, this machine is one to look out for and listen out for. It is totally kitted out for dunes, rocks, mud, and the brutal forces of rough weather and wilderness. That said, it's only as good as the person behind the wheel. And in this episode, Daniel and Luciano discuss everything from their first bike souvenirs, to crashes, to trophies, adrenaline, tips on how not to get lost in the desert, death-defying drops, and what it means to really... Dirt biking, just like any motorsport discipline, is all about balance, control, speed, agility, and physical endurance. But it's one sport where you definitely need to be prepared to expose yourself to all elements. There's no cockpit, no power steering, just a whole lot of body positioning and great suspension. And of course, no fear. Okay, let's start the show. Right, guys, I'm absolutely delighted to have you. Welcome to Motorfest, the podcast. So we're going to be jumping into today and talking about your KTM 450s. I mean, I'm going to let you guys know now, my experience on enduro bikes is limited and has often ended in some painful moments. I actually broke my hand because I caught a tree as I was coming past it. So I have absolute respect for what you guys do here. You know, I'm just going to jump straight into it with you guys. If you could be a car, a plane, a boat, or a motorbike, which one would you be and why? I feel like this is going to really tell me what kind of guys you are.
And motorbike.
Like it never happened.
to our podcast. A plane, a boat, or a motorbike, which one would you be and why? I feel like this is going to really tell me what kind of guys you are.
A motorbike, 100%, because it's the best thing ever.
And Daniel?
I was thinking a plane because it's, there's no impacts really. There's turbulence, which is rough, but I'd still go the motorbike because I like hitting the ground and feeling pain, so it's brutal.
Luciano, when you started riding, did you ever think that you would end up competing in the Dakar, or was that always the goal?
No, honestly, when I started super young, and then I remember that I watched Dakar at my hometown, Salta in Argentina, and I remember we went there with my family and friends. We camped one night, and then we watched Dakar passing the next day. It's like a famous canyon where the Dakar was passing there, and I remember watching the top guys in the bikes. It was amazing because when I saw that race,
this a do-over.
the interview.
When I saw that race, the atmosphere, the adventure, I said for sure I want to be there one day. But at the moment I was racing enduro, and since then I say, okay, I will do my best to try to be there one day. But at that moment I was feeling a little bit quite far, and yeah, and with the time was coming and came the opportunity from KTM, and then yeah, I joined the rally team, the rally program, and then I did my first Dakar 2018 was my first week. I had 22 years old, so I was quite young for Dakar, but yeah, it was a long way.
I want to hear about your first memory that you can actually remember of getting on a bike. Daniel, I want to start with you.
Yeah, Christmas morning, I think, throwing on the helmet and the goggles, new glove, and sitting on the bike for the first time. And it's pretty scary because straight away I started on a bike with the clutch and gears. It wasn't an automatic bike, so yeah, my dad put me straight in the deep end, and then you just had to learn how to swim and ride. And it wasn't on a flat property. We live on some hills and grass, so it was pretty scary to learn the clutch and yeah, the throttle action as well. So it was cool, but yeah, the whole handlebars and that, and the foot pegs compared to the bicycle that you ride as a kid, a BMX or something, and having an engine do the work for you, and it's all in the palm of your hand, so twist the throttle. That's probably the cool, easy sort of adrenaline thing that I got to learn that day, and have that feeling, the first feeling of controlling my own power, I guess. So that was pretty cool morning.
And Luciano, your earliest memory of getting on a bike for you, was it with your big brother or was it with your dad?
Yeah, my first memory is one race, my first race. I remember, I think it was me and probably 3 or 4 more guys from my home. And then I remember I started the race and I crashed. And when I crashed, I was completely lost. And then I remember that I picked up my bike super fast, and when I started again, I was 10 times more motivated than before, and I passed the other guys, and they were actually faster than me. But then, as I crashed, I had so much motivation to come back from that. And then, yeah, it was a super cool memory because I had also the first trophy from this race. And I remember the adrenaline that this race gave me was something super special.
Would it be correct saying that you guys both lived in quite rural areas, so it kind of helped give you a type of terrain that you could train on?
Yeah, like I lived on like 40 acres on the house, and so that and grass and hills and stuff. So, and then I was fortunate enough that we had like 300 acres of bush and forest behind the apple farm. So we had events there, like enduro races there. So I got to grow up and watch this and then train on these tracks and practice on this property we had from the family. So I was super lucky, but there's definitely no desert where I live, and the situation I'm in now, I have to drive like 5-6 hours to find some desert in Australia is my closest. But you know, luckily in Australia there's a lot of sand and a lot of desert out there. So yeah, I'm lucky. I still haven't even had time to venture out in the desert much in Australia because we're always traveling around and doing other things.
Can you describe to me your bike? I mean, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What's unique about it?
The engine is super strong because we have to ride in Dakar. We ride 15 days with the same engine, so basically it's a super powerful engine, and you feel it super strong. Also in the vibration and everything is a lot of power to go through the desert. And also as a
We started, and I was like half an hour into the uphill, like just going up the hill, guys, like just zigzagging my way up like a little goat path, like really going up the mountain. And I was like, when is the finish coming, or like when is the end of this hill? And he's like, oh man, you're not even halfway through. And I'm like, how is this possible? But that's hard enduro, I would say.
What's happening, guys and girls? My name is Becky Evans and welcome to Motorfest, the podcast. Brought to you by Red Bull and Ubisoft's iconic game, the Crew Motorfest. Now, this is the podcast where I get to chat to some of the world's finest motorsport athletes and dig into their passions for all things speed, wings and wheels. And if you haven't already tried it, you can actually listen to the podcast whilst you're playing the game. Today, I'm going to be chatting with the professional motorcycle rider, Manuel Lettenbichler. He's one of the very best in the world and he's an absolute champion. Born and raised in southern Germany where he's currently based, Manny has been competing for Red Bull Racing Factory since 2016, following in the footsteps of his father, Andreas Lettenbichler, who was a highly successful KTM racing athlete who was top 3 in the world. Manny got his first trial bike aged 5 and at age 16 he was the youngest rider to ever complete the Red Bull Scramble Hare race, which is a one-day race which is actually the most difficult in the world. He was Super Enduro Junior Champion in 2016 and since then he has brought home the Hard Enduro Championship 4 times. If you don't know what Hard Enduro is, this is a sport where you actually tackle the most extreme terrain. We're talking rocks, we're talking mountains, we're talking off-road in its most extreme version. In 2023, Manny made history by completing the first perfect season in the FIM Hard Enduro World Championship. Now, this is a feat that's only been completed by Manny and Max Verstappen in motorsport history today. So is it luck, talent, or is it a bit of both? Let's find out. Manny, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Stoked to be here.
So whereabouts in the world are you right now?
Just in Salzburg right now in Austria. I'm actually spending a bit of time now in the Athlete Performance Center of Red Bull because I torn one ligament at the second last round of the World Championship and trying to keep myself busy with something else than riding, let's say it like this way.
It's been a while since I've seen you. I think the last time was Goodwood in about 2018?
Yes, Goodwood. 2018, I think. It's been actually a while. I wanted always to come back again because it's such a cool motorsport festival and there's so much stuff going on. And it's been a while when we met for sure. But stoked to see you again and talk hopefully about some cool stuff.
Let's jump right in. If you could be a car, a plane, a boat, or a motorbike, which would you be and why?
I think like a plane probably, but like a cool plane, you know, maybe like a fighter plane or like a stunt plane could be pretty sick. I was like doing one flight one time with Red Bull, like in a stunt plane, and it was so cool. Like it was probably one of the best experiences I ever had. Because we just went like doing loopings, like all of these rows, like really jumped straight into it, and I even could fly the plane. So wow. Yeah, it was quite a cool experience, and I think we're so used to the dirt and the ground that I think to be a plane, like being flying around wherever you want, I think is like a pretty cool idea to have in the head.
Is that something that you've always been into? You know, like to go from riding bikes, getting into hard enduro, that's quite an
Visualize your next
extreme sport. Like, what made you get into it in the first place?
Growing up with my dad, I got into the sport because at the end he used to be one of the best riders in hard enduro. But I more or less grew up with riding bikes, you know, like he always used to be this trials rider and hard enduro guy, and I got my first bike when I was 5, and from then on I was actually motivated at the beginning because we had like a big farm back home with like a couple of horses, like as a kid, you know, you just want to be outside, hang out around with your friends, and then one day of like training on the motorbike, I did like a rock, which was like 30 centimeter high, like more or less nothing actually. But it made me so excited to like push myself in the sport and like trying to get better at it. And after this, I was really like hyped up and like hooked into like riding dirt bikes. And yeah, a couple of years later, we're here. Probably one of the best in the world, and talking about motorsport, so like pretty freaking excited.
No, it's super cool. I mean, do you remember that first experience of completing maybe a trail or something like that, and you were like, you know what, this is what I'm born to do?
Not at all. I think so many riders and like so many people already as a kid have this like, they ride and they're like, okay, one day I'm gonna be a professional dirt bike rider or whatever. But me, literally until I was 16, I thought I'm maybe going to do completely something else. Maybe I'm going to be working on constructions or like a carpenter or like whatever. And then I really more or less found the passion and to say, hey, I want to do this when I finished Red Bull Earth Brigadier back in like 2014, because I was one of the youngest finisher at this point, and for me was really like, okay, I could do something out of it. I could maybe be one of the best guys in the world. And then Red Bull came up to me and said, yeah, we're going to try to support you for a year. And first he went pretty good, became a Super Enduro Junior World Champion. From then on, I was really like, okay, this could be a pretty cool living on like a pretty cool lifestyle, you know, like you more or less make your hobby to your job and you can just enjoy riding a dirt bike in the coolest, gnarliest terrain on earth.
I mean, I think that really explains your personality when I first met you. It's not a case of like, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to go do this. You were like, yeah, give it a go. I was pretty good at it. And now we're just still cracking on. And we're winning some championships. We're doing some perfect seasons. And for the listeners out there, the Erzberg radio that he's talking about, let me tell you, as a hobbyist enduro rider, that is the hardest enduro in the world. When I watch the videos of it, I'm like, that looks like pain. You must get like halfway through it and be like, why am I doing this?
I think most of the people, they don't even get halfway through. I think like hard enduro, for all of you guys who are listening to it, it's just like short explain, like it's riding your dirt bike through the gnarliest terrain what you can find. So like you have to imagine like rocks which are like 2 meters high, like uphills which are like more sometimes than like 80 degrees steep, downhills where you like have to more or less push your bike down because it's like too steep to like ride it down. Like the good thing is gravity always brings you down, so it's like pretty nice, but like in the uphills it's like pretty difficult. But like Red Bull Earth Brigadier is one of the hardest races in the world, and there's like 2,000 starters. At the end is like 500 who is going into the finals, and I think like average like 15 people make it into the finish after 4 hours. Everybody is like who is into motorsport should come to Red Bull Earth Brigadier for one day, just even just to see this festival vibe, because it's pretty cool.
to Motorfest, the podcast. So let's talk about the sport as a whole. Let's break it down. So for somebody that had never come across hard enduro before, tell me what the sport is in your words.
I think hard enduro is really riding a dirt bike through the gnarliest terrain. Like what we can find. Like it can be rocks, it can be like a dirt, it can be even like from dirt to asphalt. It can be like uphills, downhills. You have to think through the mountains. I would like really say like a really good race or like a really good day of riding hard enduro would be go out.
podcast is back on. Our guest still has plenty of things to say.
Can be like uphills, downhills. You have to think through like...
Let's get back to Motorfest, the podcast.
Can be like uphills, downhills. You have to think through the mountains. I would like really say like a really cool race or like a really good day of riding hard enduro would be go out and go behind your house, ride into the trees and see where you end up, you know? Like I think this is more or less really being out there and like searching for the hardest path what you can find.
The podcast is back on. Our guest still has plenty of things to say.
Ride into the trees and see where you end up, you know? Like I think this is more or less really being out there and like searching for the hardest path what you can find, and super demanding sport, and it's quite nice in our sport because we have quite a lot of different race formats, so it's never the same at every race, which makes it a bit difficult maybe for the viewers and for the outside to understand sometimes, but for us as riders, it's maybe not too bad because we can have a race which can be 2 hours long, but can have also a race which can be 5 days long, where we wake up every day at like
The podcast continues.
Bad because we can have a race which can be 2 hours long, but can have also a race which can be 5 days long, where we wake up every day at like 4 in the morning and you go out there, ride 8 hours on the day, you know? I think that's quite hectic and has a bit of this rally race format, what we have out there. For example, like Daniel Sanders and Luciani already maybe talking about this, and yeah, it's quite quite interesting, but it's a pretty cool sport. And if all of the viewers out there who have never watched it, definitely check it out on Red Bull TV, because it's a pretty cool vibe and a pretty cool paddock and like some good characters.
And does the extremity of the terrain denote how long it is? Our podcast denote how long it is. So if something is really, really hard, would that be only a 2-hour race? Or if it was like maybe a little bit less extreme, it would be longer, like you said, an 8-hour day? Or is it all just really hard?
Maybe all just really hard. I think it's different hard, you know? Like you can have a race which can be 8 hours long and is maybe hard, but because the track isn't too hard, but it's just long. But then you can have like a 2 hours race, which can be so difficult to ride, and you
the podcast continues.
You can have like a 2 hours race, which can be so difficult to ride, and you really have to push your bike. You have to like really fight like for every little centimeters that you like move forward. And it can be also like super difficult and super hard on your body. But I think that what's sometimes hard enduro is also about, you know, like it's already in the discipline's name. Like it's not only enduro, it's like hard enduro, and that's why I think every kind of riding situation can makes it hard, and it's never easy to compete and to ride it.
So let's talk about how it's judged. Is it a case of first man who makes it over the line wins, or how is it judged?
Most of the time like this way. So we have like starts like we take Repoleurs Brigadier. It's like 500 people on the start line, and the flag drops and they're all out, and first guy who's in the finish wins the day, or like wins the race. But then we have this rally formats where we are more basically having like the fastest time every day. So you could start 10th, finishing 5th, but still be the fastest guy on the day, and you can win the day. So there's a bit of different formats out there, but more or less the fastest guy or the first guy in the finish, like in every race, is the fastest rider of the day, and the fastest rider of the day for sure.
interview.
Day, and the fastest rider of the day for sure wins the race as well. So it's more or less in every other sport, you know, you can be the fastest guy or like the fastest racer, and you win your competition, and it's quite nice to have those formats.
Yeah, it's so different to drifting. I mean, that's a completely judged sport where it's speed, style, line and angle, and it's just so different. It's down to a judge saying whether they liked how you did something, whereas this, it's purely a case of if you can make it to the end,
yeah,
then you deserve your trophy.
Then you deserve your trophy. And like sometimes I'm getting a bit like, I'm watching some drifting, for example, and like, oh, that looks sick, you know, like that looks really sick. And then you see like the competitions, and you're like, I have no idea how they end up with this result, but probably he wins because you like made the sickest style and probably the best speed. But it's quite interesting to see it from the outside, you know. I think for me it's like
right, let's keep talking.
To see it from the outside, I think for me as like a core racer, to have like this kind of different race form or race formats more or less. There's like other disciplines or like other things.
Back to our podcast.
To see it from the outside, I think for me as like a core racer, to have like this kind of different race form or race formats more or less.
Let's get back to Motorfest, the podcast.
To see it from the outside, I think for me as like a core racer, to have like this kind of different race form or race formats more or less. There's like a
All right, let's keep talking.
To see it from the outside, you know, I think for me as like a core racer, to have like this kind of different race form or like, yeah, race formats more or less, who there's like other disciplines or like other things who are really decide who is going to be the winner of the day. I think it's super cool to see. Same thing with like freestyle motocross, like is same thing, speed style and like I'm not sure, swag or something like this.
Basically,
but it's pretty interesting, and at the end the judges gonna make a pretty good job with this.
It's not like other disciplines in motorsport where you have to have a license or you have to have completed X amount of other races before you can compete at this level. I could literally rock up with my bike and give it a go, right?
Definitely. Like if you're keen and if you're excited enough to like sign up maybe for a Rapid Erzberger, for example, it could be super easy, you know. Like I think that's why our sport is so accessible also for everybody. We for sure race like world championship races, but we also have like these amateur classes at some races, and at Erzberg, like more or less everybody can show up and say, hey man, I saw this crazy race, I'm gonna sign up and gonna give it a go. And it's pretty cool to say this, because there's not a lot of motorsport sports out there who can really do this.
So if I got a notion one Saturday afternoon, you could end up seeing me on a hard enduro course. Yeah,
sure. Just open up a Red Bull, maybe thinking about it. Could be a really nice thought to do Red Bull Erzberger next year. You never know, maybe we're gonna see Becky Evans ripping around on Red Bull Erzberger.
So we're talking about the vehicles. Let's talk about your current competition bike. It's the KTM 300 EXC. It's a two-stroke 300cc, and you describe it as, a light bike. It's aggressive, it's snappy, it's soft, way more than a four-stroke, for example. So for you guys out there, you're actually riding a two-stroke. What does that mean for the listeners who have never ridden a bike?
I think for the listeners who've never ridden a bike, so it's like in motorsport, two-wheel side, there's like this four-strokes engine and this two-strokes engine, which is already probably the biggest differences. And like a two-stroke bike is like I already explained it, like you said, is a bit more like this lighter feeling, is a bit like aggressive, so it's also a bit more difficult to ride. But then also for us, because we're riding so technical stuff, it gives us like this good feeling about riding, because we need sometimes like this aggressive like clutch moment on like gas control to like really make up like a 2 meter step, you know, to really jump up there and like having like this snappy feeling on it, which is super nice. And I think I wouldn't say that it's like a tractor, but it has like this dragging feeling a bit more than like a two-stroke, so it's a bit easier to ride. And for us, this just light feeling, it's super important, because you're out there working really hard through just to get to the finish. So it's like your main competitor is already also the track. So I think that's a difference compared to like a MotoGP guy or like a motocross guy. So we really fight already the track, and then we have to fight the competitors as well. And then it's nice to don't have like a heavy bike or like a heavy feeling bike. So that's why most of the guys and myself are on a two-stroke, and I hope we can ride a two-stroke for many more years.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, obviously, when you're riding enduro, there's a lot of sort of getting on and off the bike, and being able to pick it up as well.
Yeah.
And I know from riding four-strokes, they're really quite heavy. So if you're doing a longer course, the two-stroke is definitely a lot easier to pick up and just keep riding on, so you don't use up all of that energy reserves. I was about to ask you, can you describe the look, the sound, the smell, the feel of the bike, and obviously the suspension there, that is such a core component of the feel of the bike.
I think a chainsaw exactly sounds like a two-stroke KTM. It's like you just like start it, it's just like bam, 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 bam. It's like quite noisy bike, but like quite high revs as well, which is pretty cool. But our bikes are quite soft, like I said, so suspension is pretty soft. But then also one of the main components, which is super important, is as well tires, which are super soft. And we ride with like a mousse gummi, which is more or less just like a bit of foam inside the tire, so we don't use air, so we can't get any puncture. So if you're out there on the rocks, which are super gnarly and like super sharp, we never can't get a flat. So that's super important for racing. That's why we use like a mousse just to save it of that, and we can really go soft with it. So it's like sometimes people push my tire and you almost can push it onto the rim because it's that soft.
I didn't know that. I didn't realise, because I did think to myself sometimes, I was like, surely people get punctures, but you just completely answered my question there. Thank you. How do you think that your tastes and your needs for what the bike can do for you has evolved over time? Has hard enduro got harder?
Definitely got way harder. Like, if I'm thinking now, all the technical parts on my bike, all the tires, all the suspension, there's so many parts which are developed now, let's say the last 15 years. When I remember when I came to the races in like 2006, for example, I was 8 at this point, and I just came to the race and watched my dad, and they went more or less on a motocross tire. So for the listeners out there, like a motocross tire is like a super hard, compact tire, and it doesn't really like stick to the ground that much. It's digging a lot, so it's like good for gravel and like dirt. But if you go over rocks and like obstacles, it just doesn't like move at all. So I think it's now, if you see from like 2006 or like before 2010 to like right now, it's such a big difference. And I think that's why also the sport got way hard, and every organizer right now wants to have like the hardest race as well. And I think sometimes we as riders have to more or less stop the organizers, don't make it too difficult, because we are right now in this position and at the moment where some things are just getting out of control, and then we almost can't make it up the hill because it's too difficult. I think like this year in like bunch of racing we had this feeling, it was just gnarly and nuts. Like I questioned myself one time, like in an uphill, and we started, and I was like half an hour into the uphill, like just going up the hill, guys, like just zigzagging my way up like a little goat path, like really going up the mountain. And I was like, when is the finish coming, or like when is the end of this hill? And he's like, oh man, you're not even halfway through. And I'm like, how is this possible? But that's hard enduro, I would say.
Like you were saying, the trails are getting harder. Like the sport itself is evolving. Like, are you having to refine your bike to keep up with the demands?
Definitely, we have to refine our bikes. Like our bikes right now is one of the most important things as well. If the bike setup is not on point, you can't be there and win a race. Like everything has to work. For sure, I think a lot of people out there who are thinking motorsport is like, okay, you like sit in something and or like you go on a bike and the bike is doing more or less a job. But guys, I can tell you for sure still the body is doing most of it. Like it's a really demanding sport. Now, because the sport is so professional that you really have to know that your body is fit, but then also your bike have to be spot on, and that's why the bike setup has to be really on a level, and there's no time for any mistakes.
Let me tell you, Manny, I have never sweat like I sweat on an enduro bike. It is insane. You're constantly trying to balance it. You're using all of your weight off the side of the bike. You're picking it up, push it. It's a full body. It's a complete man and machine situation there.
Yeah, but you get used to it, you know? It's like with everything, you know? If you're like a runner out there or like even like a drift car driver, like you, for example, you know? Like you get used to like having all of this like... like break, and I think like for myself it will be pretty difficult.
Dude, it's the physical endurance of enduro. Trust me, I'm way less under pressure in a drift car than I am on an enduro bike.
Yeah, that's true, probably.
So let's talk about risk and reward. What has been one of the most scariest trails that you've come across? Or attempted on your bike?